to hear the impact story, and some of you might have seen this figure before, but 2 years ago we entered what I believe was going to be a transformational acquisition for Lake Hope, about 500 kilometres east of here, and that's because in the top 2 metres of that lake are clays containing somewhere in the order of $15 to $20 billion worth of not well-known mineral, but high purity alumina. And our plan is basically going to get 2 guys and a truck, dig this material up and ship it to Perth, where we're going to push it through another transformational acquisition that we made last week, which is a shed that I paid $1.1 million for a 50% share at the back of Fremantle that's got a few tanks in it, it's got some pipes and some reagents. But that turns out to be a pilot plant that we have bought from the ashes of one of our competitors in the HPA space, and it's absolutely transformed us again. So that's 2 major deals in 2 years, and we believe there's more to come. And we're going to turn that material into this. This is actually the Las Vegas Dome, and that is covered in 1.8 million light-emitting diodes, and it's one of the growth areas for this niche mineral, high-purity alumina, aluminium oxide. It's known as sapphire and also ruby, depending on what contaminants you have in there. And we believe that these 2 projects together are going to transform the production of high-purity alumina globally. It is a critical mineral for the future, and it's on the Australian list of critical minerals. LEDs we've spoken about, they are growing at an extraordinary rate. There's a vast and expanding market in the semiconductor industry, and there's also an increasing market in the electrical vehicle industry as its use in batteries. So it is definitely growing at an inordinate rate, the use of HPA. We're looking at compound annual growth rates of about 20% currently, and we've shown there in blue, we've got the LED demand on the upside of that graph, plus other uses in the lighter blue, and underneath we see a bar chart showing the projected supply. And so we can see that sort of in the next couple of years we see an emerging supply deficit, and we hope to have the timing right to start delivering HPA into that market at that time. So what is high purity alumina worth? I mentioned some figures in the billions of dollars there. So it's all about how pure it is, high purity. So the standard, the benchmark is 99.99% pure, or 4N, which you can see sitting in the middle of this triangle. And it's part of a continuum from smelter-grade alumina that we produce, say, from the refineries here in WA, right up to 6N, which is ultra-pure material. And depending on how pure it is, we'll give you the amount we can ask for it in the marketplace. And the 4N, the benchmark, is somewhere between 15 and 30,000 US dollars a tonne. So it is definitely a high margin and a high demand business. It's a great place to be. We've got about 700,000 tonnes of alumina, and we've got enough in measured resources to support at least the initial 15 to 20 years of mine life, and we'll have a probable and proven reserve coming out very shortly. So we're starting to put some very significant economics around this. You might have seen this picture before. This is Roland Goddard, who discovered the deposit. This is how we drilled out $15 billion worth of high-purity alumina. It's with a plastic push tube and a rubber mallet, and the whole drill program cost us about $150,000. So it's the best return on a drill program you're ever going to see. And it comes out looking like this. It's extremely fine-grained, and it's naturally nanometer-sized particles mostly. So as a result, it doesn't need any on-site beneficiation. There's no crushing, no grinding. We don't need water. We won't need any power on site. We can do it with the renewables. So it is perhaps the ultimate ore body. And we have a very simple plan with the 2 men with the digger and the truck. We're just going to drive in off the side of the lake. This is West Lake, and that's about 1 kilometre that you're looking at from side to side. And driving off the side of the lake for, say, 3 or 4 months of the year, and then we're going to stockpile on the side of the lake and then send it off to Kwinana for processing. And we have already got a mining lease lodged, and we've also started our negotiations with the Nagi community. The Nagi are based in Norseman. They're extremely business friendly. They've done several deals with mining companies relatively recently, and our discussions with them are more about the benefits to them as opposed to whether or not we can have mining there or not. Heritage has already been cleared on the lake, as I mentioned, and so we're basically good to go once we do a little bit more work on the access track. Here is where the project is. We are about 550 kilometres from Perth, and the aim is just basically to dig it up on site, minimal environmental footprint, and truck it into Fremantle and Kwinana. So this was the results of our scoping study that we put out in November 23. We're coming to the end of the PFS. Those numbers are actually pretty much in order. This is an incredibly valuable project, NPV north of $1 billion, and we aim to be one of, if not the lowest cost producers of HPA globally, and we believe that that's going to be our entry into the marketplace. We're currently, as I mentioned, coming to the end of the pre-feasibility study. We have the A team on this. Paul Henharan is a very experienced project manager. We have a husband and wife team, Scott Fegan and Eugenia Fegan, who's in the audience today. They are both HPA experts, Illumina experts, and it's actually Eugenia and mine's anniversary today. We met for the first time at this conference a year ago, and she works for CPC Engineering, who've done the process plant work for us. Scott is on board with us in charge of all the chemistry and how that links into the process plant. And we recently employed Joseph Casella, ex-Tianqi Lithium, as our key marketing person. So we're putting all this together, and we should have the numbers out in the next few weeks. The mining is going to be relatively simple. Here's the two men, the digger and the truck. It's just basically retreat mining of the top 2 metres of that lake. You're on bedrock there, so it's a relatively firm material, easy to mine. And we're going to put it potentially on a site that we've identified in Kwinana. It's a very elegant site that's only about 600-700 metres long from side to side there. Very low environmental footprint, and that's hopefully where we'll build the plant. So that's the PFS, and as we come to the end of that, we start to obviously roll over into the DFS, and a key part of that is going to be the federal grant that we won in October in conjunction with CPC Engineering and also Professor Amir, who I believe might be in the audience. And Professor Amir is a world expert in membrane technology, and we identified a few key areas in our PFS work where membrane technology has the potential to make some significant breakthroughs. So we've just started that collaboration. We're employing, or ECU are employing some very skilled membrane researchers, and the principal aim is to construct a pilot plant, and that will link into what I'm going to talk about from our recent acquisition, and implement that membrane technology. And it's all built around a theme of sustainable HPA production. I've already mentioned the mine will have one of the lowest footprints of any mine anyway. It's really just a small quarry. We're going to leave a hole about 1 to 2 metres deep. And we're trying to actually close the loop and have a zero discharge HPA project. And that's going to form the core of our definitive feasibility study. But a few of the things that we learned about HPA on the journey is that there are actually high barriers to entry into this business. And many of you will have heard stories over the years from other players in the game, and most have failed. I'd like to say that, to coin a phrase, that we possibly have one leg over the barrier. And if you start with initial HPA, these are some of the issues. So first of all, making high purity material is difficult. Many tried, many failed, and for many people it's been a long journey. The second thing is that we've learned is that you actually need your own laboratory as quickly as you can. The turnaround time from conventional and commercial labs and assays is just too long between samples. It just adds months and months and years to your timetable. So having a lab is a huge part of the journey going forward. We've also discovered that many of them have failed because they haven't been able to recirculate the acid. It's a bit of a surprise at actually how much acid can be used in HPA production, and so that was another key cornerstone of the research that we're doing with ECU. And the fourth one is that clients really won't take you seriously until you've got a pilot plant. It's actually almost not worth knocking on the doors to tell you that they're around, that you're around, until you've actually got something that's tangible, that you can show them, and you can show that you're going to be there for the long term. If they're going to change their supplier, they want to make sure that you're going to be able to supply that material. And lastly, and this is the big one that brought a few people undone, is the scale up. In industrial minerals, which is what HPA is, there's always a balance between getting offtake to obtain the funding required to get to the scale of plant that you need to build a business, whether it's in kaolin or whether it's in HPA, high purity manganese. And that's what you need to get through to get to be a successful HPA business. So HiPura is a subsidiary of Chemex Materials. Chemex was a basket case, basically, but the underlying technology is absolutely, we think, is pretty superb. But as part of the acquisition, we also got a fully functional high-purity laboratory. There's probably one of only 2 or 3 actually in Western Australia. We can get instant turnaround in the plant for our assays. That's a huge, absolute huge advantage. This is actually a beautiful library that they have of all the samples that Chemex put together over the last few years. And each one of those from top left to bottom right is actually a product of the micro plant that led to the pilot plant being built. And if you can imagine, there's a 2, 3 or 4 week waiting time between each of those tubes in through there. You can imagine how much time, and it was that sent them broke. They just took too long to get where they were, and they borrowed money to get there. Oh, sorry, that's the last beaker. So, we also comes with a 25 tonne per annum minimum pilot plant. It is almost ready to switch on. There's some cabling to put in place. The tanks and pipes that I was joking about there, it's fully operational almost, except for cabling at the back end. It even came with a pie warmer. I was very concerned that we make sure we got the pie warmer. It actually dries the samples out before it goes into the calciner, which is the oven that you've got there. It was the most expensive pie warmer anyone's ever bought. And room to grow. So we believe that we can scale up quite significantly, even in this shed at the back end of Fremantle. But this is the big thing for us. It's a game changer in time. This is just a list of some of the companies that are currently or almost still in the HPA space. Impact, despite the fact we'd made great progress in 2 years, was still really at test work or conceptual. Cadoo are sort of the leaders in our space, still doing engineering studies. Alpha HPA, if you haven't heard of them, billion-dollar market cap. They're in the process of scaling from supposedly 1,000 tonne per annum plant up to 10,000. And Impact, we're jumping right behind them here. Now, we're not close to 10,000, but we're actually the only other company on the ASX capable of producing commercial quantities of HPA. And that's the value that we've just bought. That's worth millions and millions of dollars to us, and several years, if not, to get to this position of being able to have a pilot plant that we can take people around and show them. The other absolutely amazing thing about this technology is that it's modular. So we're able to, we believe, subject to further feasibility studies, actually scale this up progressively to say 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 tonnes and build smaller plants. And that gets around this financing problem that I mentioned earlier. We can actually build plants almost to demand, depending on where they are around the world. And we believe this modular pathway is going to be the absolute game changer for us to get this into production over the next few years. So there's already been established market inquiries from around the world, and this the patent behind it, which is owned 100% by Hypura, is already patented in several countries around the world, and that's expanding now that we've paid off the debt to Raise, who are the patent attorneys. So they'll get back on the job as we go forward. So here's the benefits, and a forward plan. We've now got a direct pathway to HPA production. We're going to leverage this solvent extraction process. We can produce a wider range of material than we could through our own process that we were working on. Gives us huge flexibility to get into the market. We believe it's going to open up huge commercial opportunities over the next year or so. But the biggest thing, increased speed to market. And we believe that we can modularise this and also license the technology. And so by 2027, which is when that supply deficit was starting to arise, we believe we're just going to be right in the right place at the right time. And we believe that that vortex that I've just shown you is going to help Impact get out of what I call the devil's vortex, if you haven't seen me talk about before. That it's natural for most exploration and development companies to have their share price just sucked into that devil's vortex and you get down to low values. And that's just because this business is difficult. It's not just difficult to explore, it's difficult to develop, and it's difficult to get into the marketplace. And I think we've got enough now to get Impact out of that devil's vortex, which is reflected here in our share price, 0.5, 0.6 over the last 2 years. This is when we got the acquisition, so we're not too far off that. We had a bit of a run-up last year. We've just done a renounceable rights issue. We knew this deal was possibly there. We had to run the rights issue with the potential of getting this in a cash-only bid, and that's what we did with our partners, and we got over another group that were looking to try and also take the plant and the Hypura assets. So that's a great story in itself over a beer. So where are we going to go in this vortex? If we get out the vortex, look, Alpha's the leader in the space. They've done an amazing job. They've got fantastic marketing. They've got fantastic products. And their market cap's gone from 20, which is where around we are, up to $1 billion over the last 7 or 8 years. We've only been going 2.5. I think we'll be done in 5, maybe 6. and so we're catching everybody else that's ever been in this marketplace. Alpha just announced a recent letter of intent for 4,000 tonnes of HPA per annum in the semiconductor industry, and they've had indicative demand for well over 30,000 tonnes, and they're building a plant for 10. There is no shortage of demand. If we build it, they're definitely going to come. So, like Philippa before me, come on our journey. We're aimed to be one of the lowest cost producers of HPA globally. It's a unique deposit. We've got a unique industry-disruptive metallurgical process. We're rapidly building out our capabilities now in metallurgy and the final product specs, and we're going to deliver into that high-margin growth market with significant upside potential, almost smack on time, which is what I am now. Thank you.